So this is part two of my video series recapping my new textbook, Comprehensive Rhinoplasty Structural Preservation Concepts. This is the first book on structure and preservation that's out there, and it's available from quality medical publishers. This is reviewing part one. Again, there are 5 parts to the textbook. The first part is principles in planning. Second part is primary rhinoplasty structure and preservation. Part 2 is revision rhinoplasty. Part 3 is special topics such as non-Caucasian rhinoplasty, crooked nose, and so on. And part 5 are several cases described in detail, and the book has 4 full-length videos available to you, as well as videos interspersed throughout the textbook for your reference on particular techniques. So let's dive into Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 is one of my favorite topics, being a hobbyist photographer, and it's photography and photo documentation. And this is so important, particularly in this age of social media. There's so much stuff you see out there that's just incorrectly done and downright deceiving. And so this is really important for the clinician and for the patient to understand. And again, it's something that's one of my, something that's really near and dear to my heart. Now, the idea of film cameras is really antiquated, but understanding a little bit about how those old SLRs worked helps us understand some of the cropping factors that occur with digital format SLRs unless you're using a full frame. Now, full frames are becoming much more common. I can't go into too much detail in this short video. If you'd like more details, again, check out the textbook. But basically, the CCD, the sensor size in a lot of digital SLRs is smaller than the 35 millimeter film size, and it causes a cropping effect, which in effect makes your focal length of your lens longer. That's a long way of saying you need to compensate for that when you calculate your focal length of your lens based on your manufacturer. If you use a full frame lens like I do in my clinic now, you don't need to worry about this. This is showing you the effect of different focal lengths. Now, we published papers on this almost 20 years ago, and it got a lot of attention recently when someone published a paper about this because of the selfie effect, which is shown with the iPhone photo in figure B. But you can see here that as you change the focal length of the camera, you get a difference in the way the face is perceived. It causes a shrinking or stretching of certain areas of the face. The most accurate portrait photography is done with an 85 to 105 range focal length, which is shown in the bottom right. Lighting is, of course, very important, and standard photography lighting is even versus portraiture photography, which is uneven. And in the upper diagram, we see the classic sort of best scenario photography setup, which is with the photographer directly looking at the subject, the lights about 45 degrees from the subject, and backlighting behind the subject with a background which typically we use blue, but black has become very popular because it's very stark. It's not as good for some skin types. I like to use blue right now. At this point in my career, I've done it my whole career, and I find it's good for most different types of skin types. The setup that I use due to space constraints here in Palo Alto, California, in our clinic is the setup below, which really is the same, just we don't use the backlight. So you get a little bit of a shadow effect sometimes, but I find that that is not too critical. So if you're setting up photography, that's a good way to go. Another important concept, which I think Roland Daniel is the first one to describe, is the angulation of the flashes to the subject. So if you put the flashes together or use a single flash, you'll get a single point on the tip, and the tip will look actually smaller, or the tip defining points will be closer together. At 45 degrees, which is the standard, you get more accurate representation of tip size with the tip defining points a certain distance apart. And as you move the flashes further and further apart, you can make the tip look wider, and that's the point of these images. Head positioning is very important. It gives you an altered sense of tip rotation. Nostril show is shown in the front photos and the side photos. There's something called the Frankfurt plane for the non-physicians who may be watching this, which is a plane through the external auditory canal and the infraorbital rim, shown in the green dotted line. And you want that to be basically parallel to the floor. This is also really important, by the way, in facelift photography. If you look at people showing their facelift results, sometimes the patients look really great afterwards, but it's because they have their chin up in the air, and so it makes it look like they've done a really great job with their facelift. I like to do photo simulations with all of my patients. I think it's really important for patient communication. I never try to sell anybody on a rhinoplasty. Any of you out there who are my patients who may be watching this know that. We do this because I really want to understand where my patients are coming from in terms of what they desire, and I want them to know what I think is possible. The simulations are never 100% guarantees of results, but they give you, the clinician, and the patient both an idea of what you're shooting for. And really, to do a rhinoplasty without something like this, to me, is sort of like flying blind. And I'd really much rather have these sorts of images, including these digital subtraction images. By the way, all of these methods are described in the textbook and how to do this. These are really important for understanding how much reduction you want to get and so on, particularly on the profile views. So that's just a brief overview of Chapter 2, which is photo documentation and photography. It's really an indispensable part of a rhinoplasty surgeon's practice. You have to have this fundamental knowledge of the principles of photography if you want to use the equipment properly. And positioning and lighting is very important, and consistency in your pre- and post-operative photographs is very important. And computer imaging is a very useful tool for communication with your patients. I hope you enjoyed that brief overview of this chapter. Again, the whole textbook goes into much more detail on all of this, and it's available at QMP, and I hope you enjoy it.